the desert of the real.
Welcome to the Desert of the Real. I am your host, Ryan Hudson. Join with me, as always, is your co-host and Jedi Master,
Jason Dietz.
The Desert of the Real is a movie podcast where I force Jason to watch big blockbuster movies he's refused to watch because he didn't think they were worth his time. You're currently watching Star Wars. Yes, this is his first time. Mostly. Not the originals, obviously, but the prequels and sequels, yeah. We're two high school English, film, philosophy, creativity teachers with graduate degrees, and we attempt to use our academic training to dig deeply into movies. We explore the creativity, philosophy, film studies, and ethics in our films and push you, the listener, to think critically about your entertainment.
It's true. We really appreciate you coming back over and over and over.
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot that you are here listening to this, to hear our thoughts, and hopefully, I don't know, deep critical thinking of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
It does.
If you haven't done so and would be so inclined, please give us a like or a follow or give us 5 stars. And, email us at desertoftherealpod@gmail.com if you have any ideas, thoughts, or reactions you'd like to share to us.
Yeah, it's true. Please.
Dr. Dietz.
Yes.
What movie did we watch this week?
Clone Wars or something. What is it? Sorry. Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones. See, there is a TV show called Clone Wars, which is like 7 seasons on Cartoon Network.
Wow.
It's like the animated adventures of Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Not the Adventures of the Clones.
No, actually, here's the funny thing. Okay, I said last week, I'm not the biggest fan of the Clone Wars, which some people will be offended by. But in the first 2 to 3 seasons, the best episodes are the ones with the clones, where the clones are dealing with their own identity
Cloniness.
And their own purpose and stuff. And that's way somehow more interesting than Jedis going on adventures. And then eventually I think the show picks up in season 3, and there's some... From there, it's hit or miss whether the arcs are good or bad. But anyway.
Pass.
In the past few years, a lot of the prequel, I guess, recognition has gone up because of watching this show. If you were a kid when the show came out, for the next 6 years, you watched the show, and now you're attached to it, and it does kind of flesh out things here and there. But we are not looking at that.
No.
We are taking these movies at movie value.
Yes. Where
George Lucas directed the live-action version of these things.
Yep. We want to preserve some of my sanity after we're done. So.
Right. No, I'm not going to make you watch that show. Hey, you saw this movie in theaters, I think, when it came out. No?
I don't see any movie ever in theaters.
Not even 20 years ago or whenever it was?
No, because 20 years ago I was even poorer than I am now.
No.
I don't know how people afford to go watch a movie. For the price of a movie, I got Peacock for an entire year. For the price of me going to watch one movie in the theaters. To me, cost value. You know what I'm saying? So.
And way before this podcast started, you told me you stopped watching Star Wars the moment Anakin jumps out of the flying car.
Yes.
Falls hundreds of feet.
4 miles or something.
And it's
happens to land on the one right speeder, doesn't turn into strawberry jam when he hits. But then I realized that was not true, because that's probably when that's when I mentally checked out.
Right.
I stopped watching with the absurd battle scene at the end of this movie. With
Yoda,
just
or with all of them?
All of the whole thing is absurd. All of it.
Okay,
but specifically the flying Muppet looks ridiculous. There's this, and okay, so here, let me set this up. Yoda can't even walk. He's got a cane. He's like, and then somehow he's flying around the frickin' place looking like a little green ball of death with a long thing, and he can do all these acrobatics and whatever. Just stupid.
I agree with you.
Oh, good.
But not because
Finally.
of the reason.
Oh.
Because Yoda, obviously, we know Yoda already. And I think it's more interesting if he doesn't have a lightsaber. Like, he's more, I don't need a lightsaber, I'm all Force. You know, that's how powerful I am. And I've seen people make similar arguments. Like, it should have just been like a battle of Force. We didn't need...
How would you do that? It just looked like this.
Yeah.
And then the other guy would be like... Actually, he gets space lightning.
Yeah.
Yoda doesn't get anything. He just
it's because lightning is like an aggressive attack. Only the Sith use it because it's used to cause pain, you know? The Jedi, they're defense, not offense.
Yeah. I don't see how you could have had that battle without lightsabers.
This might not mean anything to you, but maybe our listeners, at least one person I have seen in the past say it should have been more like Akira, this anime where there's maybe a similar battle using energy or whatever. Okay, long has this movie, to me, this one, been at the bottom of the Star Wars ranking.
Okay.
A couple years ago, my brother-in-law, he said, no, this one's amazing. This one's really good. And we watched it together. And I'm like, you know, there's something. There are things here. And what I think it is, and I remember talking about this forever ago with the Incredible Hulk movie. Like, every now and then there's just a cool thing that happens.
Yeah.
And, like, George Lucas just knows how to do specific things super well. It's easy to forget the larger scope bad stuff. Yep. Like, for example, a minor one that I just think is cool that sends little, like, Star Wars cool things to my brain is, like, the ship rising at the end and you see the rockets go click, 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 and as they're, like, reloading or something and it flies away. A tiny detail.
Yeah.
But, like, man, that little thing is cool.
Yeah.
Right there.
For me, I think the most impactful was the shot of Boba Fett holding his dad's head.
Yeah.
That was a gut punch. That was beautiful and emotive and powerful. That was a amazing shot. And it's just kind of thrown in there for a couple of seconds and then we move back to the idiocy of everything else that's going on.
Yeah, so...
But you can feel his pain, his, like... There's probably anger building and his disbelief. It's all in that one little shot.
See, something I get frustrated with Star Wars as a large whole is them wanting to fill in all of the gaps of knowledge, basically. You know, so for example, Boba Fett eventually becomes Boba Fett in Return of the Jedi.
Right.
And we could fill in our imagination in between that he's a kid abandoned and becomes this bounty hunter that even Darth Vader has respect for, you know?
Right.
And he's, you know, in the Clone Wars show. There's probably books and things. Boba Fett even gets a or his own TV show on Disney Plus.
Of course he does.
As an adult type of thing. But it's like, yeah, in between that image and the Boba Fett we know from the originals, there's a great story that my imagination can fill.
Right.
And Disney... And
took that away from
you. Disney just feels the need to let's tell everyone's backstory or whatever.
Let's not allow our viewers to use their imagination.
Yeah, and you know, whatever. We'll run into that here and there, especially like the Solo, a Star Wars movie. What's the Kessel Run? Let's show you type of thing.
We could skip it.
No, we're gonna watch it. But like the thing that made Star Wars so special, like the first Star Wars, it was how it world built. It's like, oh, there's a world going on here. The Millennium Falcon, it's dirty. It's a used car type of thing.
Right.
That was a new idea at the time. So it's we don't see that as much in the prequels, I think.
Everything's
the
clean.
Same type of... Everything's clean, and it's kind of the opposite with the Millennium Falcon. Padme's ship is super shiny and new.
Like absurdly shiny.
Yeah.
Like obviously not real shiny.
But I mean, there you get like Dexter's Diner, the Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah, it's a friend that has 4 arms.
Right,
and it's like just a straight up 50s restaurant. Right. I mean, part of me is like, yeah, I love that stuff. So just the world building has just
Yeah.
shifted since the originals.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
Should we hear your pros or cons?
There's a lot of cons. Primarily, Samuel L. Jackson is still in this movie.
You can't.
Like, he sucks. He can't act. He's like, even when he's fighting in the arena, he looks like he's playing army with his friends. He is not believable in any way.
Oh my
Samuel L. Jackson needs to evaporate.
Did you notice he's got a purple lightsaber?
I don't remotely even care. Is that to signal I'm an actor in training or something? Is that what the purple lightsaber's for?
Samuel L. Jackson likes purple. He asked specifically if his could be purple. George Lucas said no, lightsabers are blue and green. And then when the movie came out, it's like, nah, we'll give him a purple lightsaber.
Cool.
So that was just...
Did he throw a tantrum or something?
No.
I bet he did.
For the love.
I bet he did. Anyhow,
Number one,
Samuel L. I don't think anyone can really argue that point. This movie would be probably a half star better if he wasn't in it. So
wow. No one
2.5 stars would be...
That was a new sentence you just said.
Yeah.
Never before
I bet if we voted on it.
Let's ask your students tomorrow.
Yeah. Does Samuel L. Jackson suck as an actor?
Oh,
yeah. Anyhow.
Keep going.
The dialogue continues to be horrible. Apparently that's just going to be a thing for these.
Yeah.
But I felt like in this movie it was particularly notable because we have this... I don't even have the adjective to describe the courtship of Padme and Anakin. It is... I think what I decided was that George Lucas, 1, has never ever fallen in love. 2, he's never watched anyone else fall in love. And 3, he's never even watched a rom-com. And so he just has this intellectual idea of what it looks like. And so we have these... It was just tragic. It was desperately tragic. Especially because I actually think that Anakin is a pretty good actor in this movie. I feel like he actually captures the angsty teenager that can't think critically. Like, I feel like he does a good job with that.
See, okay, this is why I like watching these with you, because you were saying things most people disagree with.
That's okay.
Like, okay, that's
how I live life.
My number one complaint is the love story.
Yeah, me too.
If the love story was better written, this movie would be infinitely better.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
And it's, has George Lucas ever talked to a woman before?
Yeah. Or, even that. Does he ever even seen a woman?
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is, I guess...
Just terrible.
Random tangent.
Okay.
He was married to his first wife.
Very briefly, I imagine.
And I edited the first Star Wars. They built this big house. She left him for the guy who installed the stained glass window.
I can't really, having seen this courtship, I can't imagine why that would be. He's just so genuine and warm and loving.
Okay, he's remarried since... If you watch the behind the scenes, even for this movie, because I looked it up, he's like a funny, goofy guy. He comes across as a guy that's just...
Well, why doesn't he write that?
I don't know.
Anyhow. So, I suppose...
Sorry, can I interrupt?
Go ahead. Yeah.
And then the other thing that most people would disagree is like...
Samuel L. Jackson.
But Hayden Christensen, who plays Anakin, most people aren't a crazy big fan of him. In fact...
Well, I'm not either, but...
When these movies came out, he got a lot of flack from critics and stuff. So now
Like what flack?
Like he can't act, basically. A bad actor.
He was a perfect, angsty, pissed off teenager that can't think critically.
Yeah, this movie works infinitely better if you see it like Anakin's just a dumb teenager that doesn't know what
how
he's
else
doing.
is there
just
to see it?
Like a bad actor, I suppose. That's why, fast forward when the Obi-Wan series came out on Disney Plus, he was on like a Disney festival and people just cheered for him, and he broke down crying because he didn't get that for a long time in Star Wars. The fans grew up liking the movies, and now they're adults. Like, no, we actually love you. It just took for them to...
I can't... That doesn't make sense. Like, what did they want him to be instead of what he was in this movie?
I don't know, but I think you'd see a lot of critics.
I mean, I think if we put, what is his name, Hayden Christensen, up against Samuel L. Jackson, there's really no comparison.
Yeah,
he's
sure.
obviously like, I mean, if we put him in like in terms of Oscars, Hayden Christensen gets the Oscar. And Samuel L. Jackson is the guy that cleans up all of the candy wrappers after the Oscar is over.
My.
Right? Am I right? I'm not wrong. I'm not
you
wrong.
Have never heard more wrong things on this
I'm
podcast.
not
Somehow.
wrong. I'm not wrong.
I can't believe what I'm hearing.
Anyhow, the CGI is less good in this movie than it was in the first one. I don't know how that happened.
It's less good?
Yeah, it's more obviously CGI.
Let me step in, okay?
Step.
Peel back some of the stuff. Okay, the prequels get a lot of flack for being CGI heavy.
Right.
But here's the thing people don't realize, or I guess appreciate. This was largely the first movie shot on digital. So for the history of movies, film, like literal film in cameras, you shoot something, you have to wait a day to see it, because it has to be processed and filmed. So this movie, and they explain in the behind the scenes, like they built cameras for this movie to be shot digitally.
Yeah.
So things we take for granted now was brand new for this film. So for example, using blue screen in the background to add stuff later. You film a scene and then you see it immediately was a new concept for this thing. The cameras were so big and loud, kind of like IMAX cameras are now, that they had to do a lot of audio
editing,
redub, basically stuff. But the thing is, it is CGI heavy, but arguably they were inventing the filmmaking that we would get used to in the next decades
while they're filming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's
okay, then that's
so
fair.
new. They built miniatures of buildings and things because it was just cheaper to film the model version as opposed to creating it digitally. That's where we are right now. We've watched all the Marvel movies. They owe this movie a lot for setting that groundwork. Yeah. So
that's why it looks so bad, because you can very obviously tell the models in the background and the CGI in the foreground. Yeah. So I wondered how it could get worse, but that's...
Yeah, they dropped the film, they're doing new stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
Which is kind of cool historically, but it does...
Visually, it's still...
Here's an incredible looking establishing shot of a city, and now two people on a green screen.
Yeah.
Clearly...
Right.
not anywhere.
Yeah.
But, so that's why I give it some... I guess...
Cut it some
slack. They were inventing things that...
Apparently, the Jedi Council are all idiots. That's what I got out of this. Everyone in that council is just as dumb as a box of rocks.
Explain.
Everything they do in here is... Here's the example. So Obi-Wan's looking for planet whatever it was, and it's not on the star charts. Mm-hmm. But there's gravity where it's not. How long do you think it would take any thinking person to figure out what had happened?
Okay.
Well, in this movie, he goes to... Who does he go to?
The librarian lady.
Well, no, he's trying to figure it out on his own. He just can't figure it out. So he goes to the librarian lady. The librarian lady can't figure it out either. So then he goes to the Jedi Council. The Jedi Council's like, wow, I don't know. Then he goes to a bunch of little kids, and the little kids figure it out, and then Yoda's like, oh, yeah. So I lost all respect for the Jedi Council that I didn't have anyway in this movie. That's just one example.
Can I attempt to paint that in a different light?
You can attempt it. Yes, please.
I think that's kind of... Okay, that's on purpose, I think.
That they're idiots?
No, they're not idiots. They're too arrogant. The Jedi are too full of themselves.
Okay.
She's like, if it doesn't exist in our database, then it doesn't exist.
Right.
You know? She's like, she can't even comprehend the idea that they are wrong, basically. Because she's the Jedi librarian.
Okay.
So, and the whole thing, Mace Windu was like, I guess we gotta tell the Senate we don't know how to use the Force anymore, you know?
Because we can't figure out why this planet isn't here.
There is a giant clone army that's being made. I guess let's use it. The Jedi they're too full of themselves.
I didn't get that at all. It makes sense, but I didn't get that at all from either of these movies. I just got a bunch of out of touch people that like playing chess with each other or something and think that they're still relevant. That's what I got.
I guess, is it Dex that says something about the difference between knowledge and wisdom? Because that's what's happening here.
They have knowledge, not wisdom.
Yeah, like, they're smart, you know, but they're not being wise, you know what I mean?
Sure, or smart.
Right.
So
that's why it takes a child, hypothetically, to someone erased it. That's obviously what's going on.
But, yeah, okay. If that's true, then yes, the entire universe is doomed. If that's what it... But it does illustrate the importance of being able to think creatively.
Yeah. Admitting you're wrong is a huge step in intelligence.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And then, just the dialogue is just sad. So Obi-Wan shows up where this disappeared planet is. The entire everything, every bit of the conversation he has with the whatever aliens those are is asinine. Like, no one that has a functional brain would not have figured out that Obi-Wan didn't know jack crap about why he was there. That would be a small red flag if you're creating this clandestine clone army. You would have stopped talking and put him in jail. No, dumb, terrible.
I think you get the notion they've already been paid. So
right. So what are they? So they don't care?
I guess.
Okay. Well,
here's your request.
That whole thing was not, and literally everything C-3PO says, I just wanted to rinse out of my brain with Clorox. Just.
I feel quite beside myself.
No, just please,
R2,
please don't, please don't.
You're such a drag.
Okay. Anyhow.
Die, Jedi dogs. Oh, what did I say?
So, I used to like C-3PO, but no longer. He's just barely just above Samuel L. Jackson at this point.
That is so funny.
Anakin's mom's death is idiotic.
Oh, wow.
Like, how long has she been living getting whatever vague thing is happening to her? Months?
Yeah. I forget what it said.
Weeks?
Sure.
Months. Great. Anakin shows up and she dies within 30 seconds of him being there. Wow. That makes no sense at all. And her death, right before she dies, Anakin's sad and she's like, "What's wrong, Annie?" What kind of a stupid thing is that to ask? Your mom has been beaten to death, apparently, and she's dying, and you're like, "Oh, what's wrong, Annie?" "Well, I don't know. I didn't have breakfast this morning. I'm feeling a little peckish, Mom."
I actually strongly disagree because that's, to me, one of the strong parts of this movie. Anakin taking the speeder, you get the Duel of the Fates theme as he goes across the dual sunsets, and then he finds his mom. I don't even think it's that much of a stretch to say she was dying, she's dead, but seeing Anakin was the one
broke her heart,
I guess, or just now my soul can die, I suppose. Because you hear the music, I don't even know what the song is called, the violin dun 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 dun, and he goes out and kills all the sand people.
I think it's called "This Makes No Sense at All." I think that's the title of that.
To me, that's one of the strong moments of this movie.
Well, okay. What's wrong, Annie? I don't know. I've just been feeling a little down lately. I think my hair's messed up, Mom. I'm having a hard time.
Did his mom ask that?
Yes.
Maybe she's clearly not in the right mind. She's been tortured for weeks.
Anyhow.
That's not a stretch to, like, just... Oh, my.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think this movie was, despite all of that, and the presence of Samuel L. Jackson, I think this movie was better.
Yeah, that's fair.
So.
Like, you know, the dialogue is just kind of the blanket. It's not the best. However, when people... This is something I've seen multiple times for many years. Ooh, writing bad. Let's show the one thing when Anakin says, I hate sand. That sentence has become the poster child of bad writing.
Right.
And I need to speak my truth. I don't think that sentence is that bad.
I don't like sand.
I don't like sand. It's coarse. It's rough. It's irritating. It gets everywhere. But that one sentence, I don't understand why that has been hyper-focused on being...
I think it's...
the end-all and be-all of bad writing.
If you take the context of where and when and how it was said...
Yeah.
It is pretty terrible.
But if you think of it as, like I said, awkward teenager that's not super good with talking, he's attempting to say, I don't like sand. What I like is the opposite. What I like is you, basically.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But that's what I'm saying in terms of the context. I guess if he's an awkward teenager, yeah. Okay, yeah. Worst pickup line ever.
And it's true. Sand does get everywhere. It is coarse and rough.
That is
He's not
true.
even wrong. Anyway.
Unless you go to a beach with a nice fine sand.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think he's generalizing a little too much about sand.
Yeah.
Not all sand is coarse and rough.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you know Christopher Lee was in this?
That's Christopher Lee?
That's Christopher Lee.
I didn't know he was in it, no.
So, the reason...
He's one of the high priests of horror.
Yeah, he's in a lot of horror movies. He's Sauron the White from Lord of the Rings.
Christopher Lee. Okay.
He doesn't come into the movie until super late because they didn't have him at first. But I'm glad they have him because his gravitas adds a lot. Yeah,
he's a great actor.
He is in all these fighting scenes and stuff, and he's just sitting on his speeder bike on a blue screen, like doing his best.
That was terrible. That was not good.
Hypothetically, once again, if I could restructure some things but keep it mostly the same, I would want to see Dooku in more.
Yeah, I would too.
Because the thing that makes him interesting that you don't get a lot in the series is he was a Jedi. He's not even a Sith. I mean, he's Darth Tyrannus and stuff. He's kind of like the new apprentice since Maul has died. But in his mind, he's doing what's right. He's like, hey, Obi-Wan Kenobi, there is a Sith Lord ruling things. If you team up with me, we could take him out.
Right.
And Kenobi's like, nope, that's dumb and impossible. What are you talking about? But he's telling the truth. He's not like he's not just trying to double cross his master. You know, it's more like, this is what needs to happen.
Right.
And he trained Qui-Gon. So now you can kind of start painting pictures of, Qui-Gon's the way he was because Dooku was unorthodox, you know? It's a fun way like to paint behind the scenes without showing it, that world building I was talking about. But in the end, it's not as satisfying because there's not a lot.
Right.
I love right away the crawl says there's civil unrest. It's strange. Since Palpatine's been in order, a bunch of separatists want to leave the Republic.
Right.
You know, and no one's putting two and two together like that. He's doing it. He's causing all this unrest. Because when I was growing up, that alien, the council that Dooku's talking to, those are the bad guys type of thing. But now looking at it, like, they just don't want to be part of the Republic anymore. Right. They just want to do their own thing. In fact, Newt Gunray, the racist aliens from the first one, they have stepped away from Sidious. It literally says they've distanced themselves from Sidious. They just want to be not the Republic.
Right.
They're not bad, but, you know, they did create an army and things. They're just wanting a different structure or whatever.
Yeah. So
I think that's super interesting looking at it with grown-up eyes now.
Right. Yeah.
Like all good Star Wars, it's been spoofed to death.
I'm sure. Yeah.
There's and I think it's in the How It Should Have Ended when the bomb goes off at the beginning And the fake Padme goes, "I failed you, Padme." There's a
I
spoof.
failed you, my lady.
There's a spoof that goes, "No, this is why your job exists.
You're supposed to die for me."
You did exactly what you're supposed to do. Anyway, yeah, sometimes like I said, the prequel meme of it. It's hard not to think of all the jokes when you watch these sometimes. Padme is literally in with all these men with Palpatine, the Jedis. No one's listening to her.
Right.
She's like, "Let me do my thing. I came here to do." No. We know what's best for you. No one's listening to her. There's a deleted scene. There's a few deleted scenes I think would actually strengthen some of these movies. Like there's a scene that maybe was cut because Lucas was worried about too much politics and not enough Star Warsiness. But in the big Senate building, Padme's on Coruscant to be like, "I am opposed to an army for the Republic. That would incite war," type of thing.
Right.
And that's what she's saying. So like with that deleted scene, like, oh, Palpatine just needs her dead, basically.
Right.
Her one
that would have made a lot more sense.
Yeah.
A shame because Padme was one of my pros in this. She's like very intelligent. She's very resourceful. She pushes back to the best of her ability against the male dominated society.
Yeah.
Like she's not someone that she's not the damsel in distress. Mm-hmm. She's not someone that needs to be rescued. I actually really appreciated how they presented her character as a strong, powerful, resourceful woman. I really enjoyed that.
I agree.
And I really liked Anakin as the angsty teenager. And then when you put them together, somehow those two, I think, really pretty good performances just disintegrate. Which is maybe kind of like what happens with love. You logical brain just kind of shuts off for a while.
Okay, so there's a theory behind this too.
Okay.
For one though, it's like, how come the council put...
that's further proof they're morons.
Put Kit Fisto, the guy with green tentacle head, him protecting Padme or something.
Morons.
But there's a theory which maybe I kind of buy because it kind of strengthens the bad part is he might be manipulating her with the Force unintentionally, because
to fall in love with him.
Yeah. There's that whole scene, I killed them. Not just the men, but the women and children. What type of woman would stay with this guy?
Right.
But if I guess the fan theory that she's being manipulated unknowingly, and maybe Anakin doesn't even know he's doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe that can help make it make sense.
Maybe.
No.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you would tell this story without it, but man, it was sure painful.
Yeah.
I really liked how Palpatine's a fantastic character. I love knowing who he is and knowing what he's going to become. I love watching him use his intellect to use other people's weaknesses against them.
Yeah.
The easiest example in this one is when he manipulates Anakin. Using Anakin's pride to, he straight up manipulates him into doing exactly what Palpatine wants him to do.
Yeah.
Just using, so Palpatine is a very strong point for this movie, I think.
Yeah.
Even though he's not in there a whole lot. And
you mentioned it last episode, he's just using logic. He's playing with people's pathos.
Yep.
Anyway, I think Palpatine's a lot of fun. I'm excited for you to see it all come together in the next one.
Yeah.
Because as far as we know, when Luke Skywalker comes around, there's an empire, and he's the emperor.
I'm actually kind of excited for the next one, if I'm being honest.
That's awesome.
So,
here, I got a little fun thing for you. So, Yoda's all CGI. Okay. And this was technically the first time we saw a CGI Yoda, because when Phantom Menace came out, he was a puppet and stuff. So, this is a little thing that most people might not even realize. But in between this movie and the next movie, Yoda's ears become translucent. As in, you can see light shining through Yoda's ears. A little bit red, like a real life ear would be on an animal or a person. But because CGI Yoda was placed in Phantom Menace afterwards, you see that in that movie too. Like
but not in this
when
one.
he's sitting in a window, you see a little bit of like the red skin tint. This one doesn't have it. There's no light going through those ears. It's such a little thing, but I notice it.
That's interesting.
Like it doesn't matter at all, obviously,
Right.
but it's something like the next movie. Check out Yoda's ears. You'll see a little bit of red on the edges.
I will.
But not in this movie because we weren't. That wasn't even part of the
CGI still had some growing up to do.
And that's a little like fun. I don't know, maybe not fun fact, but a fact.
Yeah, that's cool.
I like Detective Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think that's mostly fun. He's just on a little adventure here, finding out, tracking the darts to the, he's just
to this planet he couldn't figure out why it wasn't
playing detective. And it's also fun how he's so sassy, where it's like, we're here to rescue you. Well, good job. What about Padme? She seems to be on top of things.
Right.
I like sassy Obi-Wan.
I don't. But
I
that's
know
okay.
you don't.
I did, however, speaking of Obi-Wan, I really liked the tension, like in the first, 20 minutes between him and Anakin. I feel like that was really well acted and developed.
Yeah.
Because Obi-Wan is just like he still sees Anakin, I think, as a little kid.
Yeah.
That still needs to be corrected all the time. He's not allowing him to flower or to be.
Yeah.
And Anakin is doing his best to be respectful and listen, but you can see that's why it's really bizarre to me that everyone doesn't like whoever the Anakin guy is, Hayden Christensen. Because I feel like yes, admittedly we had the love section of this, which is horrible. Mm-hmm. But I feel like he did a really good job with the rest of it.
See, that's why, and I mentioned this last episode, if these movies, especially these two, would have focused on Anakin being a slave, like how that was awful, it's something that's fundamental to Anakin's growing up. It would have, because we know something that happens, he's Darth Vader eventually.
Right.
So I think that would have made it flow better. Like, being a Jedi just feels like being a slave.
Right.
Like, I'm still a slave. Yeah. If that was more, I guess, worked into it, it would have helped Anakin's thing here.
I agree.
Yeah, he's, besides being a teenager, and that's hard enough, and being told no all the time. His mom just died. Padme's wearing like a belly shirts in front of her.
Right. Yeah.
Let me put on my clothes that say I'm not going to be into you. It's a revealing dress here. I put this on to say no. Anyway. But I think, I guess the scene that also gets flack sometimes is when he's like, it's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's holding me back.
Right.
He just killed all those people. I actually think that's an accurate representation of someone in turmoil.
Right.
And people will,
or guilt.
Will pinpoint like that. It's like,
you push the guilt out because you can't be that terrible person. It's got to be somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a coping strategy.
I think that's a good scene too.
I agree.
Anyway, it sucks that in the next couple scenes we go, I truly, deeply love you.
So I think we could fix this movie. There's three things. We get rid of Samuel L. Jackson.
That does not count.
We take out the love story and we just allow it.
Rewrite it, I guess.
Just allow it to be inferred.
Yeah.
Like you can show people falling in love with looks.
Yeah.
Or
would have been better.
Right. Way better. And then we get rid of the Jedi Council because they're idiots. So if we do those three things, we have a really good movie. So who do we want instead of Samuel L. Jackson?
No one else.
Literally anyone else on the planet.
Oh my gosh. So here's something that's also kind of fun.
Liam Neeson is out.
He's already in this movie.
He can't act. Robert Downey Jr. is out.
All right. I've played with this way too long. Actually, Lawrence Fishburne, he could have done it.
He could have. Yeah. Why not?
Okay.
Lawrence Fishburne? No, he's way too much. He can act. Well, who else is there?
All right, one last thing to like kind of emphasize.
Guess we can get that one guy from Snakes on a Plane, which is pretty much the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
Anyway, one last thing that kind of emphasizes the ego of the Jedi. They haven't seen actual battle in like
ever.
Like as far as these guys are, like Yoda probably since he's 900 years old or whatever, he probably has. But like all these Jedi, the first time in Star Wars history, we're seeing so many Jedi in one place fighting. You see all the Jedi when they first appear, and then they have the circle around them when they're about to be killed, and they get Deus Ex Machina.
Is there like less of them?
It's like,
of them?
Maybe they like they're all talk. They're the defenders of the galaxy, but they haven't seen war. What about the philosophy of the real? So,
you already mentioned the Logos Pathos thing, but we have a couple of lines that really kind of emphasize it. So, Anakin, I think, must be talking to Padme because it's not that good of a line, but he says, "You're asking me to be rational. That is something I know I cannot do." Right?
Yeah.
That is textbook. I am completely pathos driven by my emotions, right? And based on what we know about what the Jedi are supposed to be, like that's a really cool like red flag for what's coming. Like it's a good, like we know that he's motion driven, which means that he's unable to think critically or logically about anything. So whatever is going to happen to him in the next movie is going to be an emotional thing, and then he's going to react in an emotional way that's going to lead him to be the dark side guy. It's seated here with the Logos Pathos thing. That's why
they're like, oh, he's too old. He's like 8 or 9 in the first one.
Right.
We can't train him. He's too old. But like that just shows that we need kids or babies so we can manipulate them the right way.
Right.
Okay, so I want to add to that.
Yeah, please.
In the conversation where they're in the field of flowers and stuff, they're kind of talking about their own like morals, I suppose. Anakin says his belief is, let's get someone to tell us the right thing to do and force us to live that.
Yeah, that's one of my other things. Yeah.
That sounds like a dictatorship. And then he goes, well, if it works.
Yeah.
So that's also maybe a lack of logos. It's like, hey,
sure.
This works. It doesn't matter what you think. It's the thing that we're going to do.
Yeah.
I think there are people like that in real life.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean?
So to kind of piggyback on that, one of the big questions of philosophy that we haven't answered yet is how should society be organized? And we have a couple of options in this movie. We've got the bureaucracy. That is...
You love bureaucracy.
Oh, yes. I would eat it for breakfast every day.
The listeners don't know, you cut out a pretty big tirade of bureaucracy.
There's still a fair amount of tirade in there.
Yeah.
But so we've got that option, which obviously sucks because we've got people fleeing the bureaucracy. They just want to go do their own thing. And then the scene that you were talking about, the line I picked out was that Anakin says someone should make people agree.
Yeah.
And that's been a thread throughout philosophy as an answer to this question, all the way back to like Plato. Like the Republic, the perfect society, according to Plato, has one person in charge. Like it's a philosopher king. Who's wise, who's whatever, but he has total power.
Yeah.
And so we've seen this. So Anakin's not the only one that believes in this. I mean, the divine right of kings comes directly out of that answer. Like God chose this one person to be, and he's God's mouthpiece and whatever.
Yeah.
Or even like if you look at Eastern societies, they're organized that way as well.
Oh, interesting.
Like the Hindi caste system is organized like that. It's not with a single person at the top, but there's a very, very small ruling class at the top, and then it just is kind of a pyramid all the way down to the untouchables at the bottom who scoop poop and whatever. And so it's really interesting to see that society and philosophy and philosophers keep coming back to this idea that people generally can't pull it off. Like, people generally are incapable of creating a society that's functional or mutually beneficial. And so we have to have some one person or some very small group of people that are smart enough to do it to rule. And so the question of, is that true or not, is still open. Like, even in, like, if you look at Thomas Jefferson in the the formation of the United States, he believes that too. He's like, the general populace are too stupid to know what's good for them.
Yeah.
We need the intellectual elite to be the people that make the laws and govern. And so, like, for a long time, it wasn't like the republic is a compromise between, like, pure democracy and a dictatorship. That's how we ended up with the three branches of government, because the people were too stupid to do it on their own. And so that's kind of an open question for us. Like, are we not able to govern ourselves?
I think, historically, most people actually want to be told what to do. Like,
right.
Just, you know,
critical thinking's a burden.
Just tell me what to do with the laws stuff, and I'll do my own thing. And
right.
Like, I don't think anyone wants to say, tell me what to do everything. But I think it's like, yeah, just put someone in charge and I'll do whatever they say. I think there might be a pattern of that in history.
Which is, like, I wish it was scary to people, because the other pattern that follows that pattern of, I don't want to think, I don't want to make my own decisions, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Inevitably, it leads to someone taking total control.
Yeah.
And an immense amount of suffering by some group or groups that aren't the power groups. Mm-hmm. So I think, at least for my part, Anakin has to be wrong. We have to, as individuals, rise to be able to control our own lives.
Yeah.
And I think, like, theme of this podcast, for me anyway, I think the only answer is that we learn how to think critically. We learn how to not accept other people's realities, other people's demands, other people's wants, just because that's what they think or feel. I have no problem accepting other people's ideas, but I want to accept them. Yeah. I don't want them to be written on me, and I don't think anyone should want other people to think for them, because that way, like, that leads to pain. It leads to racism and bigotry and you know, all of everything that's wrong with society, in my opinion, comes because the individuals are not willing to take responsibility for their own thinking. So anyhow, tirade.
No, I like that. I want to maybe branch a thought onto that from this movie, because like some of these lines might just seem kind of maybe cliched, or we don't think about it. Like, at the beginning, when Anakin and Obi-Wan are still together, he says, "Be mindful of your thoughts."
That's literally on my list too.
Well, I got it first.
Yeah, go.
Which is totally a Jedi thing to say.
Right.
But if you think about that line,
right,
be mindful of your thoughts. Like, it's important to think about our thinking.
Yes.
Like, metacognition.
Yeah.
Which isn't something not even a concept I even knew until, like, college, basically.
Right.
Like, when you're in education classes and stuff. The thing that we're doing, how are you thinking about that thing?
Right.
So, like, you know, a good example, when you read something in school, then you do a close read. Mm-hmm. You've already read it. Now you're thinking about specific things, right, and that forces you to think about it in different ways and stuff. Yeah. But on a broad scale, if you're not in school or you're, you know, not teachers, like, it's still important to consider how you are thinking.
Yes.
So be mindful of your thoughts. This could go a lot of different ways. For example,
let's say you think Samuel L. Jackson's a good actor.
Yeah. So
let's go with that.
We got to watch a bunch of movies that prove that that's just a dumb thing to say.
I agree. 100%. He is not a good actor.
Or let's say, you know what? I think it's bad for your health and your mentality to focus on bad or negative things. I've heard it said,
Yes.
You're not necessarily responsible for every thought that flies through your brain, but you are responsible for how long you think about specific things. So it's akin to a bird flying over your head versus letting a bird build a birdhouse or a nest on your head.
Right.
You know, it's like if you are you're just online and you see all the bad stuff going on in the news and you just think the world is, you know, falling apart and all these people are to blame or something.
Yeah.
It's you focusing on it's affecting you now.
Right.
You're maybe not aware of how you're thinking of it.
Right.
Or maybe you are and you're not doing something to change it or something.
Yeah.
It's important. The main point is it's important to think of, be mindful of your thoughts.
I agree with everything you said.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dietz.
Yeah, that's good take. Good points.
You know what's so funny? Right after that conversation, before like the worm thingies come in, how are we going to kill Padme? We'll hire a bounty hunter. We'll hire a bounty hunter who will send a droid who will send these poisonous worms. Anyway, Obi-Wan's talking to Anakin, and he goes, "Not another lecture. At least not on the economics of politics. Not another lecture on the economics of politics."
Oh my.
Okay, here's a theme I think is set up. The bounty hunter that they chase all throughout the city on the flying cars. She's a changeling. She changes her physical appearance.
Okay.
I think there's a big theme of this movie of change and people changing. Like, for example, they're not at war at first, and then at the end of the movie, everyone's at war.
Right.
Anakin, he hasn't seen Padme in 10 years, whatever, and now he's married by the end. He is stepping away from like the Jedi codes. The Jedi, the Council, recognizing this change that maybe they're not in control of. This idea of change. Everything's changing.
I think that's good. I think you're right. Because he has to change into Darth Vader somehow next movie. So, yeah.
The thing, he's after he kills like the sand people and stuff, before he like goes on this tirade, he says something like, life's so much simpler when you're fixing things. The reason he does things is because he thinks he can fix them. So he's maybe worried about what he can't change anymore. Like, oh, my mom is dying. I need to stop that. I can't stop that. Like, I need to be able to fix things. I need to be able to stop change from happening type of thing. In that way, it's kind of like, oh, are these are they cleverer than we think at first?
Yeah.
And maybe, but
no, I think
gotta kind of dig for it sometimes.
George Lucas is not an idiot. So, like, he created all of this. So I think you're onto something.
All I have is like an ethical question for you.
Cool. All I have left is ethics, so that coincides nicely. What you got?
What?
Would I kill Samuel L. Jackson?
No. What did he do to insult your family?
He just sucks.
All right.
I don't know how he's so famous and everybody thinks he's a great actor. He's not a great actor. He's not even an actor if you look up the definition of an actor.
Oh my. All right, here's my ethical question. What are the ethical problems with cloning a human being? So, for example, in this movie, they've taken away some of their ability to think. They do as they're told. But in general, ethically okay to clone a human?
I can answer it philosophically.
Yes.
Because I think not physical human cloning, but psychological human cloning happens all the time. Like if you think about your feed that you mindlessly scroll, eventually whatever's on there is written on you. So you could look at like social media feeds or the, talking heads on the news programs as psychological or intellectual cloning, which I think is bad. So I guess I would think that human cloning is also bad. For a number of reasons. Because if, as soon as we allow one human being to own another human being, we're right back in all of the pre-1800s life. Like, so if you create a clone, especially like in this movie, I would say this is unethical, because they're not just creating a self-aware being that they will then allow to make choices and decisions on their own.
Yeah.
They're specifically manipulating the genetics so that these people aren't able to do that. Which, yeah, I think is highly unethical. So, yeah, I can answer that question. It is not ethical in the way that this movie does it.
Right. Okay. Nice.
What do you think?
Let's say you clone a famous person, like Einstein. Is this clone going to be smart as well? Or is this going to be a new person that just looks exactly like Einstein? Also...
Nature, nurture.
Yeah, you just give the clone everything.
The exact life experience of Einstein, you would probably end up with the same.
Something science should do? Or has already done, maybe?
Oh, I'm sure.
You think there are clones out there?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So to me, like, my main ethical foundation for everything is agency or free will.
Oh, yeah?
Did
they choose to be born?
Well, not that did they choose to be born, but are they allowed agency? And so for me, biologically, there's not that much difference between being born as a clone and being born during like the normal processes.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't know if it's inherently unethical to create a clone, but from the moment of its conception, what do you do to that is what would make it unethical. So if you allow complete autonomy to this clone, then maybe it isn't. If we look at science fiction, that's never, ever, ever infinity what happens with clones.
Yeah.
They are created for a purpose. They are programmed. They are genetically manipulated. They are psychologically manipulated to do a certain thing. So really the three things that I picked out for ethics are really all the same thing. So now I get to ask you maybe, is it ethical to follow leadership?
Yes.
Because we have
Queen
the
of
new
Naboo.
queen of whatever says we must put our faith in the Republic. Or Obi-Wan says, we will do exactly what the council has instructed.
Yeah.
And you will learn your place, young one.
Yeah.
Is it ethical to follow leadership?
I have to say yes.
Okay. Defend your response.
Okay. To large part, there's maybe not a lot an individual can do to change a system. Think of like the government. Okay? All right.
Okay.
But you can, like we've talked about this before, you do your best in your circle, your sphere,
Right.
to help what you can do. But maybe this is a little bit pessimistic, but I think in large part, all we can do sometimes is just hope things will get better with the power that we can't touch. You know, I mean, not to talk specifically about political, like presidential, like our president, I suppose, but
Right.
I think no matter what, people would have been angry who was voted in.
Right.
So, like, what is half the country going to do about it? And what's half the country going to do for 4 years about it? You know, are they
Right.
going to do something, or are they going to make, you know, their spheres better, hopefully? I can't do anything about that, but I can hope things work out.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. But what you were saying is not just hoping. You're acting.
All right.
Right?
Yeah.
You're acting in your sphere to be the best you in your sphere that you can be.
Yeah. But at the same time, think about lower down leadership, like our boss.
Sure.
You gotta do what we're told, or else you get fired.
Do we?
Yes.
Cool.
Let me think about that. Yes.
I'm not sure that's true either. So I agree with the sphere thing. My answer to is it ethical to follow leaders is it depends on if the leader is ethical or not. So I historically don't do what leaders tell me to do if I think that they're wrong. So I guess our listeners can, make their decision about that question. Is it ethical to follow a leader? Sometimes.
I guess sometimes.
A lot of times if the leaders are ethical
You're so
themselves.
like Qui-Gon Jinn, you know what I mean?
Am I?
You're just like a big old
down
Qui-Gon
with him.
Jinn.
I'm actually really wish that he would not have died. Because not Liam Neeson, who can't act, but
the character.
The
but
character.
that's the tragic thing of this prequel. It's like, if he didn't,
one guy,
things would have ended
Right.
up vastly,
Yeah.
like, which kind of makes it fun in hindsight too. It's like more of the tragedy.
Yeah,
it is a space opera
tragedy.
after all.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Will we do exactly what the council instructs us? Do we put our faith in the Republic? That's the ethical question that we have to individually deal with, I guess. I don't know about the dessert. Did anyone eat anything?
Oh yeah, there's a great one. They're just having their little dinner, Anakin and Padme. Here's your dinner. It's a pear.
Oh, that's right. And he cuts it with his force and whatever.
Or the Jawa juice. Obi-Wan Kenobi goes into the 50s diner.
Oh, yeah.
Can I get you some Jawa juice?
Cool. That's the dessert.
You know what's crazy? The guy who plays Owen Lars, which will eventually be Luke's uncle Owen. That's Joel Edgerton. He's kind of a big actor in his own right.
Oh.
It's kind of funny. Bunch of Australian actors there. Just
cool.
Attack of the Clones.
2 stars for me.
2 stars. I think that's maybe where I'm like, sometimes I trick myself like, wait a second, do I actually kind of like this more?
Yeah.
And even as we're talking about it, it's like, oh, he just wants to control things. That's his downfall.
Yeah.
But watching it, like that hour in the middle of the love story, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. If we would have taken that out, taken Samuel L. Jackson out, and made the Jedis a little smarter. Although, if we operate under the idea that they're not humble intellectually, and that's why, that might bump that up. I don't know.
So you said one of your recommendations of the reel
Is The Island.
by Michael Bay.
Yeah. I think it's probably the best clone movie, which does kind of... I mean, we figured that out like 20 minutes in, so that's not really a spoiler, but
Yeah.
I think The Island is the best clone movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's so rich. Like, if you enjoy philosophy and ethics in movies, like it's a gold mine. There's so many questions. I actually use clips from it in my philosophy class.
Plus, it has Ewan McGregor.
And whatever that other lady
Scarlett
is. Scarlett
Johansson.
Johansson, yeah.
Yeah.
Who actually acts pretty well in this movie. She has some that I don't feel like, for example, the Black Widow movie, which is not very good acting. I would recommend The Island if you haven't already seen it. Okay.
I name dropped it earlier. Put Akira on your watch list. Is
it a movie?
Well, maybe not your watch list.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
talking to you here.
Oh, my bad.
You won't like it. It's like a kind of a pivotal anime movie where it's kind of set the tone. It's also like rated R and stuff for various reasons. But if you are into animation at all and are just interested in like seeing a movie that had a lot of work put into it, you need to see it from purely a historical standpoint. It's also been referenced in innumerable cartoons, anime afterwards. But if you think about this battle they have at the end with energy, that's what Dooku and Yoda should have done.
Like, the problem with making recommendations is Star Wars is kind of its own genre.
Yeah.
Because it's not science fiction, because there's functionally magic, but it's also not fantasy because there's a lot of technology, and so it's kind of its own science fantasy genre that there aren't really any other that I can think of, any other movies that fit there. So it's just kind of tangential connections.
Yeah. It purely is its own thing.
Yeah.
You know what? Here, this is not out of left pocket. It's very much in the vein of what's big and stuff. But
Okay.
the other night, I was falling asleep watching a movie. So I put a movie I've seen before, and then I obviously was wide awake. But I put on Dune Part 2. And I'm like, dang, this movie is so freaking good. But like, Star Wars is influenced by Dune. And now we have Dune, the movie that everyone's seeing, that like, oh, this is kind of like Star Wars in some places. But as opposed to like Anakin, there's this prophecy. Is he the one to bring balance to the Force?
Right.
Dune is like, here's a prophecy, but instead of coming from who knows where, it's like, let's have the Bene Gesserit drop all these hints.
Right.
So like, oh, blah, blah, let's lean into this idea. Yeah, Paul, he's Muad'Dib. He's the one. And like, it plays with the idea of the chosen one. So Dune and Star Wars are kind of cool companion pieces. Chosen one. Vastly different ways of how it plays out.
Yeah.
And sand planets. So there's that too.
There is that too.
Yeah.
And worms.
Are there giant worms in Star Wars?
No, but there were worms in this one.
Yeah.
And they looked giant because the camera was really close.
Yeah. Did you like the monsters? Like Star Wars and monsters go hand in hand.
Yeah,
There's like
they're
those three
very
things.
Yeah.
Do you like how the tiger one conveniently rips Padme's? Oh
Right,
no,
that
belly
was
shirt.
stupid.
What a convenient rip. Uh-oh.
I was like, anytime...
How'd that happen?
Like, anytime... Like, I feel like that is a director...
That's Lucas.
Taking power from a powerful female character.
I agree.
I hate it. I hate that. Like, when they... Like, all... Actually, the Marvel movies did, I think, a pretty dang good job not doing that.
I agree.
Which was one of the reasons why I never wanted to watch them, because I was expecting they're going to, like, sexualize all of the women so that they aren't actually powerful. They're just objects.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that pissed me off when they did that.
But, like, even if you think of, like, Leia from the originals,
Right.
she's a strong, independent woman.
Right. And then they put her in a bikini with Jabba the Hutt. And,
yep, that George Lucas,
that's stupid. Anyhow.
Oh, no, you got scratched. Oh, belly shirt now. Oh, but it may...
That's dumb.
Anyway.
Let powerful people be powerful. Don't rob them for some horny teenagers watching.
Yeah, that's what's
whatever.
going on.
Anyhow.
So, here's the thing, listener. We might have a special surprise for you next week.
We will. Oh, we're not doing it Thursday.
Dietz didn't know about the holiday special.
I don't think most people know.
Maybe not, but you don't even know. This is what we're going to do. We are going to record ourselves watching it. Or... as much as we can handle. And so it might be a short episode. Who knows? Deep doesn't know what he's getting into.
I have no idea.
Which is going to be fun. So maybe that'll be our special Christmas episode. Is our recording live.
Our Mystery Science Theater 3000.
You just wait. Oh, man.
It might not be a good idea because it might solidify my hatred of Star Wars.
There's a reason George Lucas said he wants to smash every copy with the hammer. We'll say that, okay?
So that will be our episode for next week because we're going on Christmas break.
Yeah.
And then we'll get back to...
Revenge of the Sith.
Is that
the long-awaited Revenge of the... I bet if you asked your students what's the best one, half of them would say... Or I don't know, maybe even more would say Revenge of the Sith is the best one.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Because the love story's over now. So, that was Attack of the Clones.
That was Attack of the Clones. They attacked.
Yeah. Kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
Like, wait, so I just realized, so the whole movie is named for a thing that happens like 4 minutes before the end of the...
Not a great title. What would you title this movie? That's a big question on the spot, though.
I don't know.
Star Wars.
The love story.
The
awkward, terribly written... Let's see, what would I call it?
What's funny is Ewan McGregor was in
Anakin's Revenge.
Was it Revenge? I don't know.
Yeah, he like totally takes out the Tuscans. And he totally gets Padme to marry him against Jedi code and
you're not supposed to love. Or you're not supposed to not love, it's to have attachments to things.
I did really like his
explanation.
Yeah, his like worming his way around it. That was good rhetoric.
You could say we're encouraged to love.
Right. That was a good rhetorical move.
What's funny is Ewan McGregor was in the movie Moulin Rouge right before this movie came out. On the red carpet for that movie, he was told the title of Attack of the Clones. And it's funny because he's like, Attack of the Clones? Like, really? That's what it's called. Anyway, Revenge of the Sith next in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Holiday special, Christmas week, baby. We
I don't
love
know.
you.
I'm really excited to see this Christmas thing.
You know what?
I think there's a special beauty in like just the horrible, terrible train wrecks movies sometimes are.
You have no idea. Anyway,
I'm looking forward to that. So I'm actually looking forward to the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's a unique experience for me.
A Deet's choice. And then 2 movies you haven't seen.
Wait, what?
Solo and Rogue One.
I thought we were going into the good movies.
Solo and Rogue One,
Okay.
and then a Deet's choice, and then
the good movies.
And then the sequels, which we'll see what you think. Thanks for going with us on this journey. It's a lot of fun so far.
It is a lot of fun.
I love seeing how Deetz's brain works.
Yeah.
And think critically about your movies, even if it's Star Wars.
Especially if it's Star Wars.
Yeah, especially.
Any movie that has Samuel L. Jackson in, you need to think
gosh,
critically about
we
it.
love you.
Think deeply
Bye.
about why are you watching that movie.